Terror Film Festival, and you're watching Nerdgasm.
Welcome to Nerdgasm. All the way to my left is Peppercorn Montgomery.
All the way? You mean directly to your left?
Directly to my left would be Peppercorn Montgomery.
Yes,
Good evening. I'm still Peppercorn Montgomery, filling in for Joseph Winchell in all his life from now on.
Yes. That means porking his wife.
He's not
all
married.
The way to my right is Heather. Heather.
Hi.
Say hello to the audience.
Hello, audience.
Heather will be on Chat Patrol tonight. So whatever, if you type it, then
They will
she will
come.
respond.
Yes.
Well
Unless,
said, Dave.
you know, the
Except for
screen
right now,
was
because I can't
blank,
see the
which
screen.
it did right now.
Well,
so.
that could happen.
Did I do that?
It's a good night for technical difficulties.
Well,
Don't chat right now.
if you want to talk about technical difficulties,
Chat in, like,
especially
3
erectile
minutes.
dysfunction,
We don't.
to my right, Dave Campfield.
Oh, in that regard, we do.
Old
How's it going?
softy, as I like to call him.
Oh, softy.
Old
hell's that mean?
softy.
Like playing pool with a rope.
What is the topic of this very special episode of Nerdgasm?
Well,
Sir
Dave,
Terry?
well, I'm going to tell you what it is. It is Indiana Jones. Tonight, you're going to get what we do best, and that is dissecting an entire series of films. This is a 2-hour action-packed episode where we will talk about all things Indiana Jones.
It's not actually 2 hours. It's actually 90 minutes.
Okay, I take that back.
It's 90 minutes, but we're going to just keep going.
That means it's going to be that.
That's our way.
You won't see
It'll be
any
a
of it,
2-day
but yeah.
epic, but, you know,
We're
you have
just
to wait
gonna
for the
sit-
DVD for the
yeah.
edited. Yeah,
It's like a 9-hour special feature deal.
it's true.
So, aside from that, should we just jump into the? I mean, like, I feel. You know what? Let me just go like this. Very rarely do genre pictures ever get nominated for an Oscar. However, many years ago, one little film broke that rule and got nominated for Best Picture. What was that movie, Dave?
Howard the Duck.
Star Wars.
Oh, actually, Star Wars, The Lord of the Rings, The Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Okay, well,
But the one we're talking about tonight
specifically,
is Howard the
Raiders of
Duck.
the Lost
Oh, I mean, no.
you've been waiting for Howard the Duck. You've been like, Christ, when are these guys going to review it? Tonight is the night. Leah Thompson having sex with a duck. No, I'm kidding. Actually, I'm really
He's not kidding. That's actually what
that
happens.
actually happens.
If you haven't seen the movie, congratulations. You're one of the lucky people.
Yeah, spoiler alert. Tonight we're going to be talking about the Indiana Jones saga, the Indiana Jones Chronicles, the Indiana Jones
Chronology.
chronology. These films are indelible. They are iconic. Everything from the music to the line, just everything about these movies, they're a huge part of our childhood. So any one of you lovely people here who would like to take the reins and let's talk a little bit about Raiders of the Lost Ark and why it is one of the most influential films ever.
Well, I want to ask you guys, when was the first time tell me about like the first time that you saw the film. What was your experience? You know, what was your very first experience watching this film? Because it changed me. You know, so I think that I went from loving film to just wanting to do nothing but to make film from when I saw that. What was your experience like? Were you taking it to the theater? Did you see it in the theater? Did you see it at home? What was it?
I saw it as a re-release. Re-releases were quite common when I was younger.
Yeah, back in the day.
Yeah, they would definitely go out for that extra buck. You know, home video really wasn't on the boom.
And even when it first came out, home video, it still took like 3 or 4, sometimes 5 years before you got something on VHS that you could watch at home.
The first VHS tape I ever watched, just to go a little off topic, but on topic of the Lucasfilm, was Empire Strikes Back. I saw that on VHS for the first time.
You must have seen
Mine,
it.
I think, was probably, Star Wars, the original. That or the original Godzilla, the 1955 one.
I saw Raiders as a re-release. It was a double bill with Temple of Doom. So I actually had the experience of seeing both films back to back in a theater.
One takes place in 1935, one takes place in 1936. So I'm assuming they did it Raiders and Temple of Doom just to mess with the order. Do you see any particular reason why Temple of Doom takes place the year before Raiders of the Lost Ark? Because there's not really a connection between the storylines. There's no reason why that film made any sense taking place the year before.
It's kind of weird, actually, when you really kind of boil it down. I've thought about that a bunch of times. I think what it might have been was to stall, if that makes any sense, because I think that they felt that maybe he would have had this shot with Marion Ravenwood, and things would have changed and blah 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 blah. So rather than do a sequel and try and muck up, let's go back to an older adventure.
Yeah. Well, I think it also plays. I think they wanted the character to be less mature, but I mean, how much less mature are you going to be the year before? They couldn't make him that much younger because then it would just.
Last year, I was playing with Pokemon. I got my first erection. A lot of milestones, and
Just last year?
Now I'm 35.
Huh.
Yeah, so I mean, I went through a lot of changes in a year.
Indy had a very different kind of bullwhip, if you know what I mean.
I don't understand. Can you explain that?
No.
No.
Not at all.
I actually, I saw these movies out of release order, but in the proper order, because the first one I saw was Temple of Doom. I actually didn't see Raiders of the Lost Ark in the theater, or even, I don't even think I saw it until many years later, until right before I saw, it was very odd because Temple of Doom was one of those movies, and I know I've mentioned this on the show before, old school 80s HBO, there were certain movies that they used to play nonstop.
God.
And there's just, Temple of Doom was one of them. I've probably seen Temple of Doom 1,000 times.
Just like I've seen Grease 2
Yeah.
1,000 times.
And then when Last Crusade came out, that was another one that they used to play over and over again on HBO. So I saw that one probably 500 times.
Oh, yeah.
Raiders of the Lost Ark, honestly, I think I've only seen it 3 times in my entire life, which actually makes it special because it's not, it's not something that I can quote word for word.
You've only seen Raiders of the Lost Ark 3 times.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And which installment of the series have you seen the most?
The most is probably Temple of Doom, which is not even because it's my favorite or anything else like that. It was just on all the time, and it was just like, what do you want to watch? And it's like, nothing else. If there's anything else on and Temple of Doom, chances are, for some reason, or Last Crusade, I will leave either of those movies on. But I never stumble across Raiders of the Lost Ark. If I want to watch Raiders of the Lost Ark, I have to go and get the movie and put it on. That's the reason I've only seen it 3 times. Because especially there you go.
Take it home.
It's
watch
not
it
like I
300
haven't.
times.
It's not like I haven't seen it. I have definitely seen it. It's just It's not like readily. Even now, I think a couple months ago, I was flipping through the channels and Temple of Doom was on, right at the scene where they're riding off on the elephants, and I was just like, wow. And I sat down and watched 20 minutes of it before I ran to the 800 other things I do in my day.
No, but recently we had gotten a re-release of Raiders of the Lost Ark in IMAX. And I saw it because I'm a big nerd and this is Nerdgasm. And let me tell you, holy shit, was it amazing. In IMAX 3D with a cleaned up print, it looked beautiful. I mean, it sounded better than before. Believe it or not, I just watched the end of it the other night. I was DJing, I was at some club, and it was on one of the TV. For some reason, I think like Bravo was on, and like the end of it came on. And it's one of those movies where you just, I don't know what it is. Once Raiders goes on, you're done. You're into it, and that's a testament to the film.
Well, I got distracted by our chat room. So I would say for me, my childhood, and me becoming so interested in film has everything to do with the series. In particular the first one, because as a kid, they were all great, but now as I look back at it as an adult, it's really the one that stands heads and heels above the rest for me is Raiders of the Lost Ark. Spielberg was coming off of 1941.
Yeah.
In 1941, went
not a big
over
hit.
budget. Yeah, went over budget. It took place in the same time period.
Yeah.
No one was happy with it. Spielberg thought he'd get lean and mean in this. with the way that he was directing this. So he went from having too much money to having too little money, and he was restrained. He basically took a more calculated approach to being a filmmaker. You look at the filmmaking of Raiders, I mean, it's as smooth as anything. And Spielberg years later says back, it's the only one of his films that he can watch as a fan. He watches this thing objectively, like he
just watches it for the sake of watching
and he
it.
says it's the only film of his. Raiders of the Lost Ark is my favorite film. It's amazing that an action film could be my favorite film, but it is because it works on so many different levels. And it's not even a particularly deep film. It's just that it's so compelling.
Yeah.
It's almost like Spielberg's inspirations. You look at that film, it's almost like a hybrid of Michael Curtiz, who did Casablanca, and Alfred Hitchcock in the way that he used the camera, and Akira Kurosawa. All the influences of this film are readily apparent.
It was also George Lucas and Spielberg at the height of their
Right.
powers,
Right.
so to speak.
And no matter, for every sequel that followed, some were good, but they never managed to completely recapture it. It's almost like Steven Spielberg having to prove himself is what made the film go the extra mile. It's interesting, when people become successful, sometimes they have less to prove, they don't work as hard.
No.
And Spielberg was like, Raiders was Spielberg having to prove himself, and he did it in spades.
He could have stopped making movies easily 25, 30 years ago, and he'd still be a legend. He'd be a god, if not more, than some of the missteps he made. I mean, we're not here to talk about missteps. We're here to talk about Indiana Jones. But my brother created this thing, Drew Hara. He created this whole deal called the Die Hard theory. And the Die Hard theory works like this. When you have, Die Hard was amazing, right? Die Hard 2 wasn't as good, still pretty good. Every time a new subsequent Die Hard movie comes out, it makes the previous sequel look better.
Disagree. Well, you could say that of the last one, by all means. But, the first four, I mean,
Because I enjoyed the third Die Hard much
Die
more.
Hard: The Vengeance was a lot of fun.
Oh, it's amazing.
If I could just watch Die Hard 1 and 3, fantastic. And Die Hard 2 is not in those leagues,
It's
but at least
fun,
it's entertaining.
but it's just another adventure.
Yeah, it fits more in the line with Die Hard 4, Live Free or Die Hard, where it just feels like an action flick, which John McClane just happens to be.
Yeah, it's just another adventure.
And I like that character, so I'll watch him in a movie like that. But it doesn't carry the same, it doesn't bring me the same joy or interest as it would if I was watching the original Die Hard or Die Hard with a Vengeance.
So, Heather, what's going on in the chat room there?
Well, I was going to say, they don't seem to like Die Hard 4. 2
Die
is
Hard 4
okay.
is completely unwatchable.
No one likes Die Hard 4, apparently.
What do you expect?
Die Hard 5 was the one that just recently came out.
Sure, you're
right?
not confusing 4 with 5?
No, Die Hard 4 jumped the shark when John McClane jumped off of a semi-truck on an overpass onto an F-14. That was the Spider-Man
Yeah,
moment
that was.
talked
Yeah,
about.
we were talking about that earlier.
That was it. Like, after that, I was like, okay.
Did you hear the rumor that Harrison Ford was offered the role of John McClane back in '88 for the first Die Hard?
A lot of people were. That script, because of the book, that script was around for a while. I mean, it sat until Joel Silver picked it up. Nobody wanted Bruce Willis to play John McClane. Now, and not only that, well, let's put it this way, as another casting coup, like just as Harrison Ford had read, he was doing the readings with Star Wars, he wasn't going to be Harrison Ford. He wasn't going to be Han Solo.
No, he was working as a carpenter
No.
that they just invited in
Yeah.
to read with the actors, and he ended up beating out all the actors.
There's a lot of theories as far as who could have been Han Solo. Pacino, I don't know if that rumor is substantiated, but some people say Pacino.
Walken is, though. Christopher Walken is substantial.
And definitely Kurt Russell, because his audition's out there. And you look at Kurt Russell's audition, his audition, in my opinion, is actually better than Harrison Ford's audition. That could have worked really well.
I'd
But
agree
the
with
thing
that.
is,
Depends.
that
You
just
don't
as
know
an
what was
audition,
going on in the room.
but just as an audition, you don't know how that would translate to the feature film. Hugh
Right,
Jackman was not the first pick for Wolverine. His audition was fine, but it didn't compare to what he actually provided in the film
Yeah,
itself.
wasn't it Druggery Scott? Am I
Right.
probably butchering his name? It's a
Doug Ray
weird name.
Scott.
Doug Ray Scott, yeah.
He was like the original, because I remember reading all about that. Like he was the hardcore pick to play Wolverine.
Oh, yeah. Well, this,
And look what it's done for his career.
coming off the heels of Magnum P.I., Tom Selleck was going to be the shoo-in.
Yeah.
They figured this was going to be the square-jawed fella that was going to play this. And that's. Let me just say this really quick. Upon reading the original scripts and going back, as big of a dork as I am, there was almost a Doc Savage quality, a very pulp quality to the Indiana Jones. And I think what happened was once Harrison Ford was cast, because you know the improvisation, obviously, spoiler alert, when the guy's flinging the swords in the market and he just shoots them, that was Harrison Ford. You know,
Yeah.
he came up with that on the spot, and it was kind of a goof, but it worked. He made that role his own. I think if it was Tom Selleck or anybody else, they told James Caan at one point that they were in talks.
Yeah, I had heard about that also.
That was like ridiculous. I was like, James Caan? I mean, he's an athletic guy and everything. I just, you know, it is.
You just, especially now, especially Harrison Ford has made this character, you know, epic and something amazing. And he's, you know, Harrison Ford is Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones is Harrison Ford. It's hard to imagine anyone else playing it. So especially, I mean, especially imagining Sonny Corleone playing Indiana Jones is really hard. I mean, it would take an amazing imagination to really imagine how that would work.
Film, but just not you know.
No, I don't think it would be.
Raiders of the Lost Ark as a
Couldn't
film.
imagine that short round.
Oh, sorry. Oh, God, whatever happened to him. Yeah, he's working as an Asian now. What it boils down to is Raiders of the Lost Ark has one of the greatest opening sequences. And not only that, it has one of the greatest closing sequences. And believe it or not, the middle is good too. So shockingly, you really, seriously, and you remember the kids who made like their basically shot-for-shot remake?
I wanted to do the same thing when I was a kid.
I
wanted to
felt
do
the
a
same
shot.
way.
I think they were the kids that actually did it. And that's why they got some level of fame for it.
Yeah.
Right.
It's one of those movies that I would call a perfect movie. There's just really not, like, you can watch it, it's solid, it's a 4-star out of 4-star flick.
Well, it has every aspect that you look for in a great movie. I mean, it's a strong story.
Give Dave my mic.
It's a strong story. It's a great script. You have fantastic acting from all the people involved. It's shot beautifully. The music, the soundtrack is fantastic. The dialogue doesn't seem trite. It's an adventure story. You're all in it. I mean, it works on every single level that you hope that a movie would. I mean, the characters feel fully fleshed out. The adventure's real. It's a sort of adventure that, you know, has a lot of history to it, so you can really feel that there's some depth to it. So there's everything to like about this movie and very little not to like about this movie.
Yeah, I gotta agree with that.
Of course, there'll be always people who can find things not to like, but I don't think they're here tonight.
We're not those folks.
Yeah, no.
Well, is it time to play the guessing game?
Well, whoa, my voice just got so much louder.
Did it really?
Well, the working mic will do that.
Okay. You know what? Why don't we play the guessing game?
Why don't
Because,
you- okay.
Like,
All right,
honestly,
what number am I thinking of?
Okay.
18,
This is a
72.
actor
I think we're over with it.
from the movie itself. Now, you guys, not Heather, probably know who this is. You're wrong. So we're gonna throw it up there. He had a significant part in the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark. He's gone on to be an actor who's done a lot of movies. So if anybody in the chat room can figure out who this is,
come
up to
on,
you.
man.
Wait, this is not for you guys. This question is for Heather, and it's for the rest of the chat room.
Jerry Lewis.
Jonah Hill, you're close. Now,
That other guy that looks like Jonah Hill.
yeah, okay. Now
you
this.
know what, Hill?
Snooky
Spider-Man.
comes is Ken says, oh, yeah, okay.
Oh.
Right, that's right. Oh, okay, we got it. You
Oh,
throw up that
boy.
picture. Okay, so, very good.
Snook'emkins. You are
Yeah.
very smart. It's Alfred Molina.
Yeah, all these years later, you know, like that little cameo at the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like you're dying old and alone?
Could you be more specific?
Sometimes.
Can you be more specific?
I do feel that I am old and probably going to die alone. But not before I bang every chick in the senior citizens home. Bang, mother... Sorry. And that's what I bring to the show. Nothing.
Well, that was a rather morose step.
Yeah,
So
like-
back to Raiders of the Lost Ark show.
It was a show about Raiders of the Lost Ark. It
It
started,
was.
Indiana
it started that, and
Jones.
then we all talked about
What-
our own mortality.
Yeah, I mean, the inspirations of this film, you know, are it's they managed to take every B movie and B movie convention from the 40s and the 30s and elevate it
Right.
to something so beyond. And I think that this film exceeded everybody's expectations. It's like everybody did their job as well as could be, as they could have hoped for, you know. And it wound up being a film that is far better than it had any right to be.
Well, here's some news about Indiana Jones. This legacy will not stop. We know that Disney had acquired Lucasfilm. With that being said, we are going to get some extra treats at Walt Disney World. One being that when you enter the stage show, the Indiana Jones Stunt Spectacular,
Which is amazing.
it still pushes through 6,000 people a day. 6,000 people a day go and experience the Indiana Jones Stunt Spectacular. How awesome is that?
Well, it's definitely, I mean, I don't know, have everyone here seen it? Been there to Disney and seen the Indiana Jones?
I've seen the MGM stunt show.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
About like
It
this
really
Saturday.
is. I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, it's a 20-minute, I think they flesh it out to a half hour, but it's basically a 20-minute stunt extravaganza where they do all the major stunts from Raiders of the Lost Ark in straight up succession. It's like all the action scenes of that movie live right there in front of you. You know, the explosions, you can feel the heat. And it's
Like 3-4 times a day.
Yeah, and you feel like you're in the movie. And I saw this, God, it had to be more than almost 20 years ago, maybe more.
Check this out. This is what they're adding. Just let me finish this really quick.
The Crystal Skulls?
Yeah. No, what's actually happening is because it's been such a trafficked, I guess, what do we call it, attraction, we've got a replica of Indy's home in Chicago being built right next to where the entrance is. So you're going to be able to go in about a year or two and see all the cool stuff in Indiana Jones' house. Then when you come out, they're building a restaurant that is actually an airplane hangar. So you're going to sit in actual cockpits of airplanes and you're going to dine. But even better than that, they're going to be building an Indiana Jones ride. And that's going to be only at Orlando and Walt Disney World. And also, just because we're Lucasfilm right now, Star Wars Disneyland is getting a speeder bike ride. So very exciting times to be a Lucasfilm fan.
I wonder what the chances are that they're actually going to make an Indiana Jones 5. Because they've been, I mean, it took them 18 years to do Crystal Skull. And boy, did that turn out spectacular.
People
Raging
didn't like
Star
Temple of
Camp.
Doom. There were a lot of people who didn't like it, and they...
Yeah,
I
Temple of Doom
revisited-
is not particularly well loved.
But I
either.
revisited.
I mean, it's certainly better than Crystal Skull, but
I revisited this series just for this episode, and it's amazing that, like, you know, Raiders is every bit as good as I remember it being.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it changed my. I hate to say it about a movie, but it kind of changed my life. It changed my focus. And Temple of Doom, I liked as a kid, and I liked it again today, and I liked it as an adult. I think Last Crusade's a little schmaltzy for me. I mean, I like it. It's a better script than Temple of Doom, but we'll get into this one by one. We have a Nerd Girl trivia segment pertaining to Indiana Jones and pertaining to the Indiana Jones series. So, Matt, our technical director, would you be able to throw that up so we can see what she has to offer?
Yeah, I'm curious to see what she has to offer a young man like myself.
I'm Sibel. Here are 4 fun facts about Indiana Jones. According to the 1999 book Mythmaker, George Lucas's original pitch for a second Indiana Jones film involved a lost world in a hidden valley inhabited by dinosaurs. You should have stuck with that. The biplane in the opening of the film Raiders of the Lost Ark has the identification letters OBCPO, a nod to Star Wars' Obi-Wan Kenobi and C-3PO. Where'd you do your research?
There's this thing called the internet.
Steven Spielberg and George Lucas play missionaries in the airport at the start of Temple of Doom. It's my 3rd favorite.
I think we all know what your 4th favorite is.
We're not going to speak of that one. Pat Roach was killed twice in Raiders of the Lost Ark. First as a Sherpa in the bar fight, and as the Nazi pugilist who meets the wrong end of a propeller. Pew, 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 pew. Then as the thuggy guard who's pushed into a rock crusher in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Which is your favorite Indiana Jones film?
I would probably say, because I kind of grew up watching it, Last Crusade is my favorite. And then Raiders of the Lost Ark. It used to fluctuate between the two. Who doesn't love Sean Connery?
All the people who were sexually harassed by him, that's who?
And that is this week's Nerdgasm Trivia.
You were sexually harassed by Sean Connery?
I did, but I liked it.
You know Chappelle. So I have room in my Zeppelin, if you know what I mean.
That's the bell. That's the bell. She is just loaded with loaded with Indiana Jones facts and fun knowledge.
She's over 18, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So it's legal.
I think.
She's legal, chat room. She's legal.
So she was one of the facts that we pointed out was there's a lot of Indiana Jones story treatments that never made this saw the light of day. There is, the one that we were talking about in that segment with the Indiana Jones finding dinosaurs.
Yep.
Imagine what that would have been like in 1982. This is pre-Jurassic
Watching
Park.
Land of the Lost, the movie.
Right. It would have been absurd. To see how that would have come out. And there were other rejected scripts included Indiana Jones and the Monkey King, which is like George Lucas must have been on not just crack, but magic mushrooms and heroin all at once to have come up with this story. Every hallucinogen known to man.
Hey man, have some of these batteries.
Yo, it was this
It
batteries
was actually that
everywhere.
script that became the basis for Jar Jar Binks also.
Monkey King. Monkey King was about, it starts off in Scotland where Indiana Jones visits a haunted house. He fights a ghost in a haunted house. He goes to, where are you touching? He goes to,
Well, is it based on the real Monkey King mythology? Because that's a big part of mythology in Chinese history. But go ahead.
Okay,
Yes.
but it involved talking monkeys, however insane you thought Crystal Skull might have been, this one was going to go far and above anything that you would have thought. And there was other rejected scripts. It took a long time even before. There's a lot of versions of Crystal Skull.
The Lost City of Atlantis treatment.
Yeah, that's never been substantiated, though. I can imagine
That is substantiated because what happened was they had presented it. It was going to be a
video game.
It was going to be a video game, but actually before that, this is where it gets weird. They were going to make young indie, I guess we'll just call it Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. They were going to make a young indie movie, and that was the payoff to the series was going to be the Atlantis deal. They eventually scrapped it, and it became a video game.
Well, that video game was actually a lot better than some of the sequels.
Well, speaking of video games, let's talk about my show and tell today, boys and girls. Today's show and tell is brought to you by Nintendo. Well, actually, LucasArts put this game out. The game that I'm speaking of in particular is Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings. And we talk about things that are better. This is a game that was created for Game Boy DS. It's actually kind of hard to find these days. If you can pick it up, I suggest you do. It's a lot of fun. What this game essentially deals with is Indiana Jones' quest from Israel to Egypt for Moses' staff. And if I told you, if I'm not kidding, if I told you that a Game Boy game, a handheld console game, had a better storyline than the last Indiana Jones movies, would you believe me?
Oh, hell yeah.
Every single Zelda game.
Yeah, basically. I want to see a Legend of Zelda movie. When is that going to happen? That needs to happen. Somebody get on that.
They made a cartoon.
I want more. And I also want the new video game for 3DS because I'm a big Game Boy nerd.
What is everybody's favorite Indiana Jones game?
Ooh, I like the one where Indiana Jones wakes out and finds out that he was actually a sailor from the 50s with a hard opium problem.
And all the adventures were actually a dream.
Yeah.
It's always a very satisfying ending to a movie when it all turns out to be a dream.
Was that
That
real?
is right.
Never.
Yeah.
Was that a
Right.
thing? Did that happen?
Show.
Lord.
Oh, I'm just so glad it was a dream. And
Or you could just end it like
Did
The
that really
Sopranos.
happen?
okay,
Or did
now
you just make it up?
here's the
Credits
interesting
they just
confession.
quite like,
we
oh,
gotta
just end it.
drill Heather about something. Heather, how many Indiana Jones films have you seen?
That many?
We have a special guest on this show. What makes her special is the fact that she hasn't seen any Indiana Jones.
Not even accidentally.
So
Not
like,
even accidentally. I
so
tried.
okay,
Or-
we can make up titles, and you could tell us if they're actually Indiana Jones films or not. We could test you on this. So don't cheat. Okay,
cheating.
now, which of the following titles was not an Indiana Jones film? Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Indiana Jones and the Golden Fleece, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Indiana Jones and the Technicolor Dreamcoat.
right. No, that was a made-for-TV movie, actually.
It was all musical.
Oh, damn.
It was lots of singing and dancing. I
Suck at
enjoyed
this.
Indiana Jones and the Golden Fleece was actually a graphic novel written in the mid-90s. There are so many spin-offs and so
excellent.
many... I accidentally rung my bell on the way as I put that down. There's a lot of spin-offs that came as a result of it.
One of my favorite spin-offs that Dark Horse did was there was an issue of the Star Wars comic book where Chewbacca and Han Solo have, it's Indiana Jones. It's a time travel story, and Indiana Jones finds the Millennium Falcon, and he's with the little Asian boy.
Short round?
Short
Short
round.
round.
Speaking of short round, I think it's time we delve into our Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom review. Heather, what did you think of it?
I thought it was just the best one out of. Is that right? It was the best one? The worst one?
See,
It was
why am I
mediocre.
getting this tossed at me? I saw it 3 times.
Okay, now I revisited. Okay, let me start with my review.
Oh, wait, I saw parts of that.
You might have. It involved, like
Temple, and it was
right.
kind of full of
It's about
As the
Indiana
president of
Jones
the
in a
Cape
in a
Capsule
Jewish
fan
temple.
club.
He's getting his first circumcision.
There,
Now,
there was a girl that just kept fucking everything up.
Willie Scott. Okay, so my opinion on Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is that I think that I might personally enjoy this film more than I'll enjoy Last Crusade.
You would.
Well, no, because I'll tell you what. Last Crusade is schmaltzy. It's a better script,
Yeah.
but Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is a better made film.
Yes.
It's interesting when you look at these films. The movies today don't quite seem to have the same cinematic quality. I mean, there's a lot more moving camera, but they move the camera very artfully. Today's movies, action films, tend to do a lot of shaky cam. There was an artfulness and a smoothness to the film direction that is sort of lacking in today's action films. You have a lot of kind of overdone handheld stuff in a lot of the action films.
Or it's
Whether
all just in
Michael,
front of a green screen, so it doesn't really matter.
yeah, whether it's Michael Bay, but the image quality seemed like it was higher contrast. It was more interesting looking. The first 2 Indiana Jones films had such a beautiful look to their photography. And by Last Crusade, I don't think that it had the same level of visual splendor that the previous ones did. So that being said,
It tried.
yeah, I don't know. I think
Some of the scenes, very much so, still kept that, but there's a lot more, like I said, it's a lot more special effects, sort of green screen. A lot of Temple of Doom, and we'll stick to that one since that's one we're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all practical locations, practical sets. So, when they're traveling through these locations, it's really the location. And they're shooting in 35 millimeter. No matter how good the digital technology gets, it's just not quite the same. It's amazing. I mean, the technology from even one film to the next is amazing. But I think that's where, and I've recently, the last one I saw was Last Crusade. That was the last one I probably watched completely through, most recent one. And there's certain like the blimp scene and stuff like that, and you look at it in contrast to the way they do the special effects now, and it's all, as opposed to like the scenes in Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom, where you have that whole scene where they're chasing each other on the coal carts down the tracks and stuff like that. I don't know. It has a more realistic feel to it.
The villains in Temple of Doom are great. Mola Ram is a great villain.
Yeah.
Pat Roach never really gets much credit for being the heavy in a couple of films because he was in the first film in the 2 roles, mainly as the Nazi boxer. And I was looking at that film again. He even has the pose down like a 1930s pugilist.
Yes. Yeah, he knew.
And then he goes from a German to playing an Indian, somebody of Indian culture. Like in the next film, and you don't doubt it. You're
He's
not
very
like
versatile.
Just don't tell anyone.
The spike pit scene. There's a lot of things in Temple of Doom that I think were Indiana Jones at its best, even if the script is fairly mediocre. So it was it was a wonderfully directed and it's a technically brilliant film based on a mediocre script. Whereas I think Last Crusade is a very good script. That's where the technical aspects of it are not as good.
Well, I wonder too with Temple of Doom. Now, as we have displayed in front of us, you really can't see them. There was a Marvel. Was it 3 issues? Yes, it was 3 issues of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. No one expected Raiders of the Lost Ark to be such a big hit as it was. So by the time Temple of Doom rolled around, we had a franchise. I also thought what was really cool was it was the first time, obviously in the series, because it's only the second film, we see Indiana Jones in a tuxedo, and he's looking pretty suave, you know. And I think it was like, wow, this guy is, he's a really world travel type of dude, and created a little more. I don't know. I want to say James Bond, but it created like, this guy was a world traveler,
Clearly was the inspiration. Bond was a big inspiration on it, along with the 40s. And Gunga Din. That film from the 40s with Cary Grant.
Well,
that whole opening sequence has a very Bond-esque quality to it, but it also has that sort of old film noir Hollywood style to it. Also, it sort of blends those styles really well with Indiana Jones in it, and it makes for a really fun opening scene.
That was stuff cut out of the script for Raiders of the Lost Ark. The opening scene was in the first Raiders script, which was so long, and they took a lot of set pieces from that they cut and put it right into the sequel. That's why, and it's not the only scene that was lifted from the Raiders script that never made it into Raiders. The mine car was another example of something that was in the original Raiders script that they transferred, over to it. And I think what Lucas did, again, like his descent into madness sort of began with Temple of Doom, because it's sort of like, let's think about that story.
Yeah.
The story is insane. The way it looks, the art direction, the performances, Mola Ram. These are great things about the film. But the story itself, Shankara stones and children, and slave mines. Really, George? You wanted to go darker on it. Spielberg did as good of a job. I can't believe he did such a good job directing such a weird storyline. And he seemed like his heart was even more into it than it was Last Crusade. Even though Last Crusade was more of a personal story. But I think at that point, by '89, he's sort of like, I want to get out of this action kind of. Let Peppercorn. Who are you,
Let
Whoopi
Peppercorn talk more.
Okay, well, it's
Is
that sarcasm or truth?
Peppercorn, talk more.
Well, I'm talking, so therefore he must really be wanting Peppercorn.
Tonight we're covering Dave's favorite film series, so it's hard to get the word in edgewise.
He's only seen it 3 times.
That's why we have the bell.
No, Temple of Doom I've seen a ton of times, because it was always on, and why didn't? Temple of Doom, taking the Spielberg and Lucas thing aside, because there's a topic we can go on for hours. If just to talk about that movie as a whole, what works and what doesn't work. It's certainly an adventure story. It's a lot of fun. There's some great scenes and stuff like that. From, now as an older person, the way they just gloss over the child slavery thing in the third world country, it's kind of almost insulting in a way. But also, listen, I was a kid when I watched these movies. It didn't really mean much to me. But aside from that, I think one of the big things is, and I know it was mentioned in the chat room, one of the big problems that people had with this film was a certain actress who may or may not have been sleeping with the director at the time, who is the most grating movie character. Is definitely, if you made a list, the 10 most grating, annoying, it would be Jar Jar Binks and Kate Capshaw's character in
and
Temple of Doom.
both were CGI. Kate Capshaw.
I wish, because then we could edit her out. But she, just the whole indie and all that. Go.
But that was still casting by committee, and for as annoying as a lot of people.
Yeah, because everybody was going to shoot down the director's wife. It's just like the same gimmick. Remember
But
Roy
it's
Scheider's
a committee
wife
of a
in
couple of
Jaws?
friends,
Remember Roy Scheider's wife in Jaws?
What about her?
Do you know the story?
No.
That was one of the head producers' wives.
Should be a fun fact.
Then she,
Well, she didn't go shrieking throughout the movie, so that's a good thing.
That's true. Sometimes that, nepotism works out okay. Other times it becomes, the perfect poster thing for a movie where you're just like, there's something about that movie I just don't care for. Oh, there it is. It's screaming, and then, but listen, there's some absolutely classic fun scenes in Temple of Doom. I have to talk about the dinner scene. With
Monkey brains?
The monkey, where they just, each dish that they bring out is slightly more disgusting than the last. And it's funny, it's kind of gross, it creeps people out, but it is, it's just a fun scene. And it's one of those things that there's dialogue in the scene. That's important dialogue to listen to.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like exposition, important points that they have to get out.
yeah.
But they put in something to make it to keep you interested while you're getting
monkey
the information.
brains with a delicacy.
Exactly. Like that's a really fun scene.
It's a great scene, and the thing is,
Standalone, it's a great
there
scene.
were a lot of parents that were up in arms because they said that Temple of Doom was too graphic. And
It was a
What
little
began the
bit.
PG-13 rating.
what's that?
So what began the PG-13 rating?
It
you
did.
know?
Yeah.
Because at
That,
point,
Red
there's
Dawn,
PG
there were a
era.
couple of other movies that kind of...
Red Dawn was the first one that was labeled PG-13.
Yeah.
It was the first ever film. But before that, like Gremlins and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom came out, and there was a lot of parents that were freaked out. I don't know. Like, I was really freaked out by the
It's
ghosts
the
at the end of
Mola Ram
Raiders.
scene with the heart.
Yeah.
It's the gore. Once you saw the gore, and not only that, it's like once you see that scene, like, I think if you're a certain age and you're either a film lover or a filmmaker or an actor, these films, like, I'm 35 now. These films are like this is like my Bible.
Yeah.
It's my childhood, it's my Bible. Because Dave said, you know, how much, I'm going to say it right now. The 3 movies that made me fall in love with cinema, Star Wars, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Superman. After that, I wanted to make movies. I was like, and what do they all have in
Yeah.
common? John Williams' score. So I think John Williams inadvertently made me a movie lover. And that's why the score to a film is such a big deal. You know, like Only God Forgives just came out. Not a great movie, but the score is great and it's beautiful to look at. Go pick that up. That's the new Nicholas Winding Refn film starring Ryan Gosling. Not a lot of dialogue, but a lot of violence. Now, there's been a lot of talk. Once we got to Indiana Jones and the Lost Crusade, wait a second. You know what? Let's take a commercial break.
I think it's time for a commercial.
I think it's time for a commercial break.
About halfway through.
Gotta loosen up the old pants. Eat some Cheetos.
Red Cheetos.
Slap a few white broads around. Just a normal day for
There's
me.
only one white broad at the table here.
And that's you. Hey!
There's so much
That was
love
good.
at this table.
It's just comedy, man.
Yes,
all it
very
is.
funny.
Just comedy. Just telling jokes. Some of them are dirty.
We'll be right back. We'll be right back.
We will?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, okay. I'm just
possible.
saying.
Can't say that.
It's possible.
All right. We will be back.
I will. Can you hear Dave?
Oh, yeah, perfect. Oh.
Ta-da! The magic of television. We're back. And boy, oh boy, do we have some surprises for you. Dave, do we have a special someone who wants to speak to us?
We do have a special someone on the line.
Via Skynet?
Via Skynet. We have Corey Dana, who is a writer over at horrornews.net. I think this is like one of the top 10 horror news websites out there. There he is on screen.
Wow.
Yeah. So, Corey, now, what is your favorite installment of the Indiana Jones series? Is Corey been abducted by Skynet?
Corey's just another pretty face. He's like, I came here to jack off, and that's it.
Oh, like me.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're not sure if we hear. Do you hear us? Is Corey's microphone on?
Corey, can you
Is that
hear
what
us?
we're asking?
Caroline, give us a sign.
Can't hear him. Oh my. Okay.
Define rusty trombone.
He's talking.
He's talking. His voice has been taken away. I feel so bad for him.
Sign language. Do sign language.
Corey,
Pictionary. Can we start up a game of Pictionary?
can you sign to us now?
Isn't there a delay, Dave? So
There is a delay. There's quite a bit of a delay.
Oh my God.
He's
yeah.
trapped in cyberspace. I
Yeah.
knew this would happen.
It's like in Superman 2, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you
oh, he's
call
in the
it- you know-
Phantom Zone.
That's right.
He does sort of have a Terrence Stamp look to him.
He does. He does. I thought it was soon.
You'll kneel before me, Jarrell,
When I-
and your heirs.
No, when I saw him, I was like, that guy's British. That's
Oh,
it.
he's
That was it.
He's not
Yeah.
British.
It's the nice.
He's not British?
It's the nice.
Well, he
Kent
can put on a
humor.
British accent when the audio comes up.
Isn't Terrence Stamp also
Is this
Australian?
the guy who made Shaun of the Dead and all those movies?
Simon Pegg. That is Simon Pegg.
Shaun of the Bed?
Shaun of the Bed was the porno remake, which was.
It's the movie I'm about to make. Holy crap,
of the
I
Bed.
can't believe I didn't think of that earlier.
Oh, not me.
My mic is.
I gotta be
Okay.
honest with you. This is the best chat roulette session I've ever had. Seriously. But when is he gonna show us his junk?
Yeah.
Like, cut to the chase here. Enough of this happiness.
Now
Anyway,
it's our fault for using
back to our
dialogue.
handsomeness. So yeah, Temple of Doom, man. What a movie. What a film.
Nice interjection.
Yeah.
Ah.
What is that?
Was that your Bane impression?
It is.
Okay.
Maybe all the people of Gotham need a little bit of help. Oh boy. Technology's failed. It's Skynet. This is it, guys. It's happening.
So we
Brace
happen to
yourselves.
have Sean Connery in the building. Actually, speaking of.
Do we really?
Yeah.
You didn't see him on your way in?
He occasionally takes over the body of Peppercorn Montgomery.
For real?
Yeah, I've witnessed it happen.
No.
At certain moments, he does possess me, which is weird since he's still alive.
Yeah.
Well, it's just astral projection.
Is
Yes.
he going to be about to possess you right now, right?
Well, he's a little upset about all the things you said about his movie, Dave. Finally, they made an Indiana Jones movie I could actually watch. And the things you said about it. That was a top-notch film, the best one in the series. I would have come back for Crystal Skull, but like us good Scotsmen, we have taste.
True.
It's great to be here, Dave. Thank you. Retirement's been great. Thank you for asking. Good question.
Now, what would Sean Connery have been in Kingdom of the Crystal? Because they said they had a part
He
for
would
him
have been
in
a
it.
very old man.
I like how they have on Indiana Jones's desk in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. They have all the pictures of the people who died. For plot convenience, it's been a
Which
horrible
you
year.
will see at the new Disney attraction.
Ah.
I got $500,000 just for that headshot.
Probably.
Yeah, you notice it was like a
probably.
professional.
Probably the
headshot.
finest acting in that movie.
Darby O'Gill and the Little People. That's right. That's pretty much where.
Classic
Excellent
singing
film.
Connery. Can we get Connery to sing? Will you
Oh,
sing
no.
For us?
You're not budgeted to pay for me to sing, especially at my age.
We have so many batteries. Will you sing for batteries?
No.
Think
Do we
of-
have any
think of
luck
all
with the
you could
Skype
do.
caller? Is there? Okay, so technical difficulties. I think we're going to start to move into the
Corey should know if he
review.
wants to get on air, he has to possess the soul of one of the hosts. Of course, only one person has soul.
James Brown. So, that's a nice look for you, Jerry.
Thanks. You didn't get it all the way up there?
Yes.
Oh no! Don't encourage him to put it up his nose and just pull it out his butt.
Oh,
Is that a thing? Can that happen?
Oh,
Okay, I think our control man just went deaf. So, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade was I think after a couple of failed attempts at getting a screenplay off the ground, Lucas tapped Jeffrey Boehm, who came up with a storyline that they were all happy with because they felt it was too vacuous. They felt that they were treading unfamiliar ground, so they came up with a story that dealt with Indiana Jones, father-son relationship, and started off with childhood and go into his adult years. And it's certainly a different thing. Personally, I mean, I feel like it is of the three first films, it is the softest one in terms of tone.
Yeah.
It's definitely, it doesn't look quite as cinematic like this. It looks like it's softer contrast.
Yes.
The soundtrack is not as, I mean, the
Bombastic and epic in front of you.
Right. It's everything about it is softer. And I think that even the attempts at
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Corey's in the house, man. Corey Dana from horrornews.net. He's in the house. And Corey, I want to ask you right off the bat, what is your favorite Indiana Jones installment? And as a horror, then let me venture to ask you, as a horror writer, what do you think of Temple of Doom?
Temple of Doom, I think Temple of Doom is the more fun of the first two. And yeah, it's pretty horrifying as a kid. You know, a lot of that stuff kind of creeped me out. The all that stuff just kind of got to me as a kid. But as my overall favorite, I am going to go with Raiders for sure.
What do you think Raiders gets right that the others don't?
I think it was just the right tone that the first one had. And a lot of it had to do with Karen Allen. I thought the chemistry between her and Harrison Ford in the first one was just spot on. I'm not quite sure that chemistry carried over to Crystal Skull, but as far as the first one goes, definitely it was the chemistry between those two.
It's interesting that you point out Karen Allen because a lot of people don't really give her a whole. I mean, a lot of people when they talk about Raiders of the Lost Ark don't really mention Marion Ray Wood. You know, they talk about the other elements of the plot. I didn't even mention her, but that's such a good point. She's sort of the heart of the film. And had you thrown in like another actor, like Deborah Winger was up for the role and almost got it. This is the same thing with Tom Selleck. You put somebody else in the roles, would it have been as good of a film? Or would it have been I Road to China?
Oh.
And, kind of forgot.
I can't believe you just referenced that.
Yeah, I Road to China being...
That's for our older audience members.
Right. Tom Selleck as an Indiana Jones impersonator, pretty much, and the film that is largely forgotten today because it didn't stand the test of time.
Well, there was a lot of them. What was the film with what's his name?
Good
Alan
description.
Quatermain. I feel your
Alan Quatermain?
Oh.
What was the actor's name?
Richard Chamberlain.
Think.
Richard Chamberlain, right.
Richard
right.
Chamberlain was like the poor man's Indiana Jones.
But I always felt like I was
That will be
confusing
his
at one
epitaph.
point. You could have even put it wasn't what's his name? What's his name?
Richard Chamberlain?
No.
Wilt Chamberlain.
The karate of Richard Chamberlain. The Chuck Norris was in Firewalker, which was
Firewalker was also a poor man's attempt.
right.
Oh, yeah.
But
it did have Louis Gossett Jr.,
Yes.
That's right.
which makes it okay.
Corey, what is your favorite Indiana Jones ripoff of all the ones that came down the pipe?
Yeah, I think I'd go with Alan Quatermain.
Which one? The Lost City of Gold or King Solomon's Mines?
I would go King Solomon's Mines.
Yeah, King Solomon. Okay, I gotta be honest. I've only seen like pieces of them when they're on TV, and I could get through like 2 minutes. I'm like, right. But wasn't Sharon Stone in one or two of them? Do you remember like which one she was in? Sharon Stone. That was sort of like the beginning of her career.
Sharon Stone was in Above the Law with Steven Seagal. So was the very sexy Pam Grier.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
But it was
So-
Alan Quatermain?
It has nothing to do with it. I'm changing. You know, I don't even want to talk about Indiana Jones. Let's hear your thoughts on the films of Steven Seagal.
All right, now you're talking.
Speaking of horror,
Now we got some. He did a horror film called Against the Dark where he fought some vampires, and that was awful.
That sounds.
Oh my goodness, I
I
just
haven't
watched
even heard
that.
of that one.
You've seen Against the Dark? You've seen this film?
Yes.
Corey?
Yes, I just reviewed it for the book I'm working on, and
So what is this book that you're working on?
it's a celebration of action films and action stars, and we're focusing on actors who come from the world of sports and martial arts.
Actually does.
So
It's called The Good, the Tough, and the Deadly.
The Good, the Tough, the Deadly, and is Jeff Speakman chronicled in there as well?
Yes, he is.
That's going to make this man buy the book.
I interviewed him last month.
You interviewed him firsthand?
Are you kidding me?
My partner did. I didn't, but he interviewed him last month. Yep. He's recovering from cancer.
What? He's for what about?
He had throat cancer.
Jeff
He's,
Speakman had
recovering.
throat cancer?
Yep, he's got a clean bill of health. He's good.
Oh, thank God.
So when can we expect this? How will this book be released?
Last I heard, we were talking with Schiffer Publishing, and it's looking like it won't be out until the end of 2015. But there's a lot of work going into it, and any action fan will probably have a good time with it. We're gonna have over 1,000 films covered in it. So
1,000? Okay, so is Caesar and Otto Summer Camp Massacre one of those 1,000 films?
Holy self-promoter, Dave.
No. Okay, no. I know that Corey actually has reviewed my films, so that's why I put that shameless plug in there. But of course not. It's not an action film. It would not fit in there. So now, have you read any of the expanded universe Indiana Jones stuff? Have you read any of the Dark Horse comics? Any of the extended, any of the Lucas books stories?
there was one of the comic series I had read when I was younger, but I can't even remember which one it was. It wasn't really memorable.
I read there was a series of books by Rob McGregor, produced by Lucasfilms, and one of them is actually better than some of the movies, involving Noah's Ark, But anyway, so now we are on to, so join the conversation as we talk about Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Did we just lose Corey? Is he still around?
Did we just lose ourselves?
Yeah.
I think so.
The screen is black. We can't
I
see.
We
think
lost
it's-
in the void of devote blackness.
feel like
I'm
we're in
okay with
the-
this.
I feel like we're okay.
It's
Good,
okay.
good,
We're
good,
just-
good, good.
We're
So,
setting up our Doctor Who
what
episode
is
next
your
week.
review, Jerry, of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade?
Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade opened in a very tough summer, okay?
Oh, yeah.
You had Batman, the Tim Burton Batman. This is 1989. You had Ghostbusters 2. It didn't matter what it was, but Ghostbusters 2 was a big movie. Number 3, you had Lethal Weapon 2, which was a box office juggernaut, and in my opinion, a better film than Lethal Weapon 1.
Yeah,
So
I
you
would
had
agree
kind of
with
a
that.
summer of sequels and a Batman. I don't think that you would see as many, not really, let's say Lethal Weapon's iconic, not as iconic as Indiana Jones, Batman, and Ghostbusters, but it was one of those films that even though it was just lost in the shuffle, it was Indiana Jones.
Right.
I think the character of Indiana Jones is much more humanized in this film. If you had the flights of fancy and a lot of the things that we saw in the Temple of Doom, this was a much more grounded film. Now, I dig this film. I really do. I mean, like you could say it's a softer film, it is what it is, but it felt as though with this film, they were trying to come full circle, and maybe Indiana Jones was going to be a trilogy, kind of the way they ended it, But I love, I can't cite specific scenes, but I just dig it because they're looking for the Holy Grail. And I think that there's only been one other film, the Monty Python film, that has spoke of the Holy Grail and done as much as they could with it, especially bunnies biting balls. But the far superior film, for my money, is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Why is it called The Last Crusade?
Well, the Crusades, Knights of the
Oh.
Crusades. Now, I gotta say, I had some issues with them discovering this, or the knights still intact in the cave at the end. I don't know. So
like
there's
the
a lot of
ghost kinda
things.
deal?
No, it was the real knight who just been
Yes.
staying in the.
Yeah, but that's kind of the way those curses work. It's kind of like the mummy.
But I felt like Raiders was the least of a stretch in terms of I feel like you can believe, even though it's still fantastical, you can still come closer to believing what happens. In
It's
Raiders
right
of
up
the
into
Storm.
the end that it gets fantastic with the Pandora's box kind of thing happening.
Yeah, when they open the Ark and everyone's
Yeah.
face melts.
All of the sequels wound up going into more of a fantastical realm. And I think that the more it went into that realm, the less you get pulled into it because you stop feeling connected to it. So, I know Peppercorn. How do you rate Last Crusade?
I really enjoyed The Last Crusade for a lot of reasons. I loved the opening with the young Indiana Jones. I really got into. I thought it was a great little action segment. I thought River Phoenix, as a young Indiana Jones, shortly before he unfortunately passed away, really nailed it, and it was a great setup for the movie. I thought this movie, like Jerry was saying, it delves more into where Indiana Jones comes from, who he is, his backstory. I mean, when you introduce the father-son dynamic and where it's at, some of the comedy in it's a little hokey. It's fine, and then some of the stuff with the Nazis and stuff, it almost feels like it's the Jones father and son taking on the whole Nazi army.
Yeah.
Why did we even need the U.S.? What do you call it? I'm sorry, I was distracted by something. That happens to me a lot. I'm sorry, but this is a film I can watch over and over again. I really dig it. I enjoy it. The action keeps me very excited for the whole thing.
And going.
I didn't have a problem with the whole story of the Holy Grail and stuff like this. I grew up Catholic. I know all those stories, and I enjoy history, so I'm familiar with the story of the Crusades and stuff like that, and the Knights Templar and all that. So I thought, I got really more into that than the Temple of Doom sort of story about the stones and everything else like that.
Corey,
Temple of Doom moves a little faster. Sometimes I watch Last Crusade and it feels epically long, but Return of the King style long. But it's a movie I can pop on at any time and enjoy.
Well, Corey, before we're going to sign you off in just a moment here, but I want to hear your thoughts on the other two Indiana Jones films. Your thoughts on Last Crusade and your thoughts about.
Right, well, Last Crusades, it's a slow-moving movie, like you just mentioned, but it's definitely put together well. I don't really have any complaints about it. I love the dynamic between Connery and Ford. I kind of missed, well, not so much. I'm glad there was no Willie type character in Crusade, but I did kind of miss the Karen Allen type dynamic. But
I'll definitely agree with that. Yeah.
But other than that, there's some really great set pieces. The boat chase was pretty fantastic, and I like the escape. When they were Indiana and his father were tied up, trying to escape. I kind of like the comedy in between those two when they're trying to get out of the fire and everything. But it's not my I kind of rank them in order as far as my favorites go. So it's still my third favorite, but I don't have nearly many complaints about it. It's still a good film. And if you want to know my thoughts on Crystal Skull, I could sum it up by when I went and seen it in the theater. I went to that opening night, first showing. I had my fedora on. I walked into that theater, I was feeling like a little kid again. I kind of get to the opening scene. The opening scene's not bad. You get through to the point where Indiana Jones jumps into the refrigerator. And my heart started to sink right about that moment. And it just got worse from there. So when I walked out of that theater when that movie was over, I was not wearing that fedora anymore, and I had it tucked in my coat because I was ashamed.
Oh.
And that's kind of how I feel about Crystal Skull.
It's interesting. I think that's one of the few instances where critics felt guilty about giving the film a bad review, and it winds up with some decent reviews. Because I think the first reviews, and the same thing happened with Phantom Menace.
It had a lot of very positive reviews.
Yep. First, when Phantom Menace first came out with advanced reviews that were very, very negative, the audience didn't want to hear that, and people got mad at the critics. And then critics sort of changed their tone, and they kind of gave Phantom better reviews than it had been getting.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing happened with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, that the first initial reviews that came out were negative, and then there was a backlash, and then the critics started posting positive reviews. So I think that's what happened, because it really makes no sense that film could have reviews. I mean, it could have that level of positive reviews. The audience in general didn't respond to it, and it's not exactly a critic-friendly movie on the basis of the plot. Okay, so with that, Corey, as we delve into Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, we're going to terminate this call, and then thank you for being on. And your book is called what again now?
The Good, the Tough, and the Deadly.
The Good, the Tough, the Deadly, available in 2015. I'm looking forward to reading it. That sounds great.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks a lot, Corey,
Horrornews.net.
for
Read the
coming
work of
down.
Corey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, got something to read to you. It's very important. The Spooky Walk 2013 has arrived. Join inravio.com this Friday. What?
I don't remember how it's pronounced now.
It's in Ravio. Spooky Walk 2013 has arrived. Join inravio.com this Friday and Saturday night at Camp Paquatuck in Santa Mauritius, New York for chills, thrills. The whole family can come down and enjoy it. Only $15 per person. For more information, go to spookywalk.com. I do this for a living. Suck it. People pay me to talk. What you know about that?
I'm afraid to say it, but are we up to Crystal Skull now?
We are up to Crystal
Do we
Skull.
have to talk about Crystal Skull?
Yes, yeah. It's in some ways it's the most fascinating one because you could look at all the talent involved. You could look at Spielberg and Lucas and
The worst incident in American
so-
history.
Well, let me kick this one off, though. I'm kicking this one off. Officially, the Indiana Jones quadrilogy jumps the shark at the effective moment when Indiana Jones gets inside of a model home where they're testing nuclear weapons, the atom bomb, so to speak, in the desert. He gets into a refrigerator, which who would have known? They just don't make them like they used to, and he survives an explosion as the refrigerator is thrown many, many miles. And that was the moment for me. That was the moment where I was
the
like...
moment happened later down the line than that because I think that moment was still well made, but it was ridiculous. The problem was that the refrigerator kept tumbling and tumbling and tumbling and tumbling. Like if it was just sent flying and it landed, would you guys have had as much of an issue?
No,
Yes.
it was the simple fact that it's a friggin' atom bomb. I'm willing to suspend disbelief for many things. Again, this is the live free or die hard when Bruce Willis jumps on the F-14. It's just like, okay. For some reason, the supernatural elements that have always been throughout all of these films have never taken me quite out of the film. But for
As
some
much as
reason,
that one.
the science of the atom bomb. And not only that, we have to largely talk about how Indiana Jones was very, very influential on so many archaeologists. Because Indiana Jones was the first guy who made archaeology sexy. It was cool, it was dashing. So you might have gotten into archaeology thinking that you were going to be Indiana Jones, but still it was that creative, curious nature. And I think those are the scenes where Indiana Jones is kind of putting together the pieces of a puzzle and being an archaeologist and being an intellectual. Not only is he an intellectual, but he's a man of action and an adventurer. What did psych me up was when they're at Area 51 and we realized that the place from Raiders of the Lost Ark where they stuck the Ark in is Area 51.
Right.
That made me so happy. The refrigerator scene, not so much. One more. Shia LaBeouf, yes, Shia LaBeouf. This is the guy they're going to hand the franchise. I know he was in the Transformers, and I know those movies were wildly successful, but he was not the guy to play Indy's son. Because if you're going to hand off the franchise, it better look like a guy who might have pubes. Because we're supposed to believe that his son, and what is the son's name?
Mutt, because Indiana was the name of George Lucas's dog, therefore harkens back to that. But the problem is, like, if it's the character that they chose to give him. Shia LaBeouf, I don't have any issue with his acting. He brings conviction in what he does.
He was very convincing when he was swinging with monkeys. Shia LaBeouf swings with monkeys. I buy.
We don't mean
I
like
buy
swings.
For
with
some
monkeys.
reason, I believe Transformers coming down to Earth, inhabiting cars, and coming to life more than Shia LaBeouf swinging with monkeys. There's a problem.
Well, because the thing is, like, what if he was like playing a different kind of character, it would have been fun. But they wanted like him as the badass. I'm having a hard time with it.
He was supposed to be like Brando in the Wild One,
Yeah.
and he was more like a kid on a friggin' Nick Jr. show. It was just, it was bad casting. It was hot at the moment casting. It was like, hey, I know this other Jewish kid who's a pretty good actor, and
Yeah, Spielberg had a little, had a little thing for him. I mean, because he's looking at him maybe as a young version of him, in a way that he reminds me of me in a way, and so he transplants him in this film, and it's a horrible choice. But regardless of who you cast in that role, even if it's somebody that fits the role, it's still not going to be a good movie. You know, it is such a, it's like Lucas had this idea that harkens back to Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is that we're going to mix and match. We're going to mix and match. Can you guys still hear me? Is my mic good? Okay. We're going to mix and match a lot of different kinds of movies. We're going to mix the B-movie, serial, this, that, the other thing. And he has a similar mix in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, where he's thinking we're going to take B-movie sci-fi films from the 50s.
Yeah.
And mix it. It's the same kind of dichotomy, but it's almost like he was trying to fit pieces of a puzzle that organically did not fit.
There's a stranger on set.
I dig the movie, quite personally. Like, as much as I want to trash it, there's a lot of good stuff in Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. God, is that a mouthful. Because I kind of always felt that it was leading to aliens. Call me crazy, but that's what I felt it was leading to. It was either that or Indiana Jones and the Lost City of Atlantis.
Right.
The cool thing about Indiana Jones with novels and with comic books is that you can take this character and he can go on so many adventures.
Right.
But on film, it's a little bit different when you're selling a whole movie.
Right. But
And plus the character ages. So
are you familiar with
the actor
Zacharias Sitchin's Chariots of the Gods? It's somebody who, in the 1950s, from looking at the formations in the ground in Peru, deducted that early man was spawned by aliens. This goes back to Chariots of the Gods.
Yeah.
There's a whole foundation of this belief, and I think that, it's a fascinating study, even though he's probably full of crap.
It is, though.
It's a fascinating study, and I can't believe it, and I think that they could have had a great Indiana Jones film that harkened back to that idea, but this wasn't it. People were objecting to the fact it's aliens, and I think it goes a lot beyond. It goes far beyond that being the issue. Peppercorn, I've got to hear your review of this. Your unabashed review.
Unabashed. Oh, well, that's a good word for it. As I said about Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, where everything worked right in that movie, they did everything right. Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal, blah, 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 is the complete opposite of that. With the exception of Karen Allen, who's actually delightful in this film, as she was in the first one, nothing is likable for me about this film. From the moment the film starts, after the moment when you realize it's Area 51, because I did enjoy that. I was like, a nice reference, nice little play into American history.
It made me so happy.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. From that moment, from the action scene in the warehouse on, which was, I was just like, well, it's an action scene, it's cool. Harrison Ford stayed in great shape, but he just, and I know he really wanted to do this movie, but from every angle, this felt like a cash grab. From the script, the way it was done. Halfway through the movie, I saw this movie with some friends. People were like furious, like someone had insulted them. The South Park episode where they talk about this movie is the most.
It's brilliant.
It's brilliant because that's how fans felt, which I thought personally was a little hardcore. It's a movie. I can't get that upset about it, but there was just not a lot. Shia LaBeouf, for what he is and what he may be one day, that's all fine. But it was just like, it was Indiana Jones, and now he has a kid, and they're riding off, and he's a tough guy. There was nothing likable, memorable, interesting about this movie to me. I could not wait for this movie to be over. I wish I could fast forward it, especially the last half hour. Once they get to that temple with the crystal and the alien thing, I was just like, please end this.
People
put
were
on
freaking
Stargate.
out. When I was in the theater, I was trying to absorb it and give it a fair shot because I'm such a fanboy. But people in the theater, they were like my friend Jay,
there were a lot of really
literally
upset
got up during the whole spaceship sequence and was like, "Are you kidding me? Are you really kidding me?" Like, he almost lost his mind. And I was like, "Jay, calm down."
This is not one of, because I have a very specific of physically made me sick movies that I hate when I saw them. This is not quite on that level.
No.
Actually, AI probably is the number one. That X-Men 3.
That was still well made. AI was still
It was
well
well made, but what a waste of time.
I would say that I think what happened here is Spielberg, everybody was asking Spielberg, including his own family, to do this film, and he felt pressured into doing this. So what you have is a film that is a reflection of what happens when a filmmaker who used to be passionate about material doesn't care about it anymore, and it's sort of like, let's get this done.
But he still
And
knows
look at
enough
the
how
film.
to make a good movie.
He doesn't
I
want
can't
to make
listen to
that
excuses.
kind of.
Spielberg still knows how to make a good
But
movie.
he's not passionate about it. If you don't have passion about it, then
Well,
your
he's
work's
passionate
going to
about
show
Lincoln.
it. You're right. He's passionate about other kinds of movies now. He
Right.
feels
Yeah.
like at this age he shouldn't be making this kind of film anymore.
Then
and
don't
what
make
you have is a bored filmmaker making a film that's ultimately
There are a lot
boring.
of other directors out there.
You know, and so like you can see like they filmed it pretty much in like consecutively, and this is the first Indiana Jones film that they filmed mostly in America because he didn't want to leave the States. It was really just a job for him, you know, because you look at young Spielberg and he's all, you know, giddy and excited to be there. And this one,
Tunisia and
Right.
he's like, this one, let's just shoot in my backyard, let's get it done. And he's probably counting the minutes down of every moment on set because he doesn't care about being there. He's doing it because
Well, all
his
he
kids
uses
asked
is
him to
dollar
do it,
signs in that.
and
Ka-ching,
it's
ka-ching.
gonna be a good.
Can't take away the fact
aspect.
this movie was still an incredible moneymaker.
Yes.
$800 million
yes, nothing
gross.
to you know.
I mean, from Spielberg's standpoint, this is in no way a failure. Not at all. He
Not
got the
financially,
reviews
at
he
least.
wanted, however, he got those good reviews, and he got all the money. He got good reviews and the money. He's
girl.
doing all right. Well,
A lot of
That's-
what boils down to the frustration with the Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Was it a way to keep the franchise going? Perhaps.
The only way that continues now is if they make an apology. Spielberg was disappointed with
Nah,
Temple
I
of Doom
wouldn't
because
do
he
that.
he thought it was too dark, it wasn't fair to the fans, so he made Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade as an apology piece. Well, guess what? He needs a far bigger apology piece right now.
yeah.
Indiana Jones and Tatooine? I mean, like, really? Is that really where we're going with this? Because, like I said, there have been crossovers. There have been Han Solo, Indiana Jones crossovers in the Dark Horse comics, and even in a couple of the novels, and in a couple of the erotic fantasies, which are available at Jerry Hart.
Stop it now.
Where Harrison Ford does himself, because he's so handsome, jumps back. He's like,
I've read them. They might be the least erotic thing ever.
They're very unerotic. Just him with Ally McBeal.
It's very mechanical. Jerry's hasn't found his voice in writing yet.
I have not.
Yeah.
Not yet. My slash fic just is not good.
Listen, I don't want Steven Spielberg and George Lucas to apologize. If they really felt like this was the right script that's fine.
It's like
That's their choice. I didn't care for it. That's fine.
I feel there were a lot
But
of
I think
hands.
I think there is an opportunity or a chance. I mean, of course, you'd have to get everyone on the people you need on board. But there's a possibility of making another Indiana Jones film, and I think you can make a good movie. I don't know what the mindset is for that picked that script, and I mean that's
It goes back
movies
to-
as a whole always come from the script. It
goes
always
back
has to come from the script.
1994.
That's a
1994.
Bob's Burger,
Yeah.
1994 was when Lucas had the brilliant brainchild to make Indiana Jones. I think the original script was called Indiana Jones and the Saucer Men from Mars, and Jeb Stewart, who wrote had just gotten off The Fugitive, was hired to write it.
Oh, I've
That
heard about
scene
this.
that script
Oh,
was
I've-
pretty much all but abandoned except for one sequence. You know what that sequence was?
The refrigerator?
The refrigerator scene. So that was in every draft of the script that followed. So
They
it
love
went
that
from
refrigerator gimmick.
it went from his hands
It
to
is kind of funny when you think about it.
Jeffrey Boehm did a draft of it, who wrote Last Crusade. Who then it went to M. Night Shyamalan. I can't imagine what he did with it. And Frank Darabont. It went through a lot of different hands. I read Frank
Turns out
Darabon's
Indiana
script. Has
Jones
anybody?
was the
I read
artifact he
Frank
was looking
Darabont's
for.
script.
I don't think it's necessarily any better. It's
No.
different.
It's different, but it's not a better film. What pisses me off most, even more than the refrigerator, was somehow they dug up Karen Allen because for the last 30 years after Starman, Animal House, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and like 10 other like hugely influential
Yeah.
movies in the 80s.
She was in The Sandlot.
She was in Sandlot,
I
but she
got
kind of
it.
like fell off the face of the earth.
She did that.
Comes back as Marion Ravenwood, and Indiana Jones gets married. Hey, that's fine. I want to see him be happy. That's great. But here's the problem. You know how we always say in the movie business, leave a door open for a sequel? Well, goddamn, wouldn't you know that son of a bitch Spielberg took it literally, and the doors in the church fly open. Son of a bitch. That even happened in Scream 3, you prick. In Scream 3, the door opened and then she
I didn't
closed
make the
it.
movie. Don't blame me for
I've
it.
had it. I'm tired of you making these bad movies like Scream 3 and Indiana Jones 6.
Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Someone wants to know why everyone talks badly about M. Night. Go.
That is we only have 5 minutes. I'll talk about Some of M. Night Shyamalan's early movies I actually really enjoy. Sixth Sense, Unbreakable,
Great movies.
really fantastic. The guy clearly has a vision and way things. As he went on, I mean, the premise and the idea just gets stranger, and it's a longer wait through these movies to find out the big twist ending.
Okay, here.
And then they're incredibly unsatisfying.
Peppercorn, I'm going to save you some breath here. You ready? Lady in the Water sucked.
I liked Lady in the Water.
You might be the first person I've ever met in my entire life
I've never met anyone.
that likes that
The
film.
last
And I love Paul
Airbender-
Giamatti,
The
but-
Last Airbender sucked.
Whitewash
After Earth
casting, too.
sucked.
Don't forget The Happening.
Yeah.
And The Happening is
What was that? There was another one where they're like, it's a town in the past, but they're really in the present.
Oh yeah,
It wasn't that
The Village
bad.
or whatever.
The
it's
Village.
called.
Village.
It wasn't
Should've thought
that
of that.
bad. I mean, I've seen worse. It just had a really
But
bad twist.
we're all just jealous that he gets so many second chances.
He does
Which
get a
is
lot
pretty
of-
much it. Because it's probably like, it.
Someone else like Lady in
someone-
the Water.
Somebody, okay, you guys might be
Oh.
very in the minority here, or they might just like you, and therefore they're saying they liked it.
Either way.
But
There was one.
But the thing is, I think when you don't see movies, you're lying.
I saw Lady in the Water.
Of all you don't watch
don't think
movies
I
and you
hate-
saw
I
Ladies in
didn't
the
hate
Water.
Signs.
You realize
A
how
lot of people
ironic that
hated
is?
Signs.
No, Signs is probably his best film.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
was
even
okay
gonna
with
lie.
Signs. I enjoyed
I can
Signs.
watch Signs over and over again because
The
that's-
Happening.
Oh,
The Happening,
man.
yeah, The Happening.
What's happening now?
My brother will fight someone if they bring up that film. He hates that film passionately.
It's Mark Wahlberg.
He writes letters to M. Night Shyamalan looking for his $10 back
He'll get it.
all night,
Yeah.
all long. It's very,
After Earth.
very disturbing. He's getting medicine now.
The Last Airbender.
I mean, there's-
After Earth, can we blame M. Night Shyamalan? I mean, I feel like that's a Will Smith is like his version of a photo album of his kids.
when 1/3 of the audience or less likes your films and you're still greenlit to do like multi-million-dollar movies, it doesn't make sense. So it kind of breeds resentment, and that's why there's a lot of people that aren't. That
The
don't
last
find M. Night
Airbender movie
Shyamalan.
was picked. That was supposed to be the lead into a franchise series.
And the
Why
I
did
was
cartoon-
they
so
make
disappointed in that.
The cartoon is so good.
Yeah.
I watched
Yeah,
the
I mean,
cartoon.
that has a
love the
huge fan
cartoon.
base, a very passionate fan base, and it was built to be a franchise. And it actually was. It was a successful movie. I don't know why they haven't made the sequels. I'm surprised they haven't.
Cutie Kinzo, but Devil wasn't directed by him. That was
No, it wasn't.
That was
it
produced.
was
It
made by
was
somebody
the
else.
EP on
He
it.
wrote it though,
So that's,
and it was very Twilight Zone-esque. That episode, excuse me, that film. It seemed like a Twilight Zone episode, right?
And it's a short film. It's only like it's under an hour and a half.
Yeah,
So
good flick.
It's actually
It's a solid flick.
conceptual wise, yeah, it's not
You can
bad.
do a lot worse. Not only that,
Yeah.
it's a cheap flick to shoot. You got a bunch of people in a friggin' elevator. Dave, next movie.
well, next movie, okay, I think Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull leads us to Indiana Jones 5, which may or may not happen. There's a contest that I discovered online where you can write a summary of an Indiana Jones 5 treatment. And I spent days on this contest only to discover that first prize is a hat. So I worked a little
I
too
won.
hard.
And a bowl of soup. You get a bowl of soup and a hat. You know what,
Cup
though?
of soup.
So I came up with my own Indiana Jones 5 story. I'm going to see
I got to tell you, I got to get this off my chest. I'm not going to be around, guys. I know all 12 of you watching will miss me and probably cry yourselves to sleep and or touch yourselves, and that's perfectly normal. That's what happens when you grow up. I'm not going to be around as much. Mainly, I'm pregnant, and I have to take care of my baby. And no, I'm kidding. I'm not pregnant. I'm just very, very worn out. I've got a lot of other projects going on. Dave Campfield is going to be the host of this show.
Don't scream.
Yeah, so he's going to be the guy who's in charge, running the show. I'll pop back in time to time to say hello, and whenever they need me for something really bad.
No,
or
we're
for-
good.
Or for when Joe Winchell doesn't show up next week. Like, I'll be here. I'm just, whenever Joe doesn't show up, I'll just fill in for him.
We'll just keep you on the side. Just
In all seriousness, though, we've talked a lot about Indiana Jones, but there is only one way that we can sign off properly with this episode. Now, we have to show you the majesty, the magic of John Williams' score, Steven Spielberg, Alfred Molina, and let's not forget Harrison Ford is the great Indiana Jones. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been watching Nerdgasm. All the way to my right is the lovely Heather.
Hello. Am I supposed to talk now?
yes, you say goodnight.
You
Oh,
tell
good
me.
night.
Say goodnight, Gracie.
Good morning.
Good morning.
See you in a few.
To my left is
Peppercorn Montgomery.
Some
I love you all.
Orville Redenbacher.
Or All of you.
Oral Redenbacher. That's
don't-
going to be my porn
I
name.
don't love
Pops
Jerry.
right in your mouth. Dave Campfield,
Jerry.
director, actor, Hidden Valley Ranch enthusiast.
How did you know about that?
I know a
We
lot
all
of
know
things.
about it, Dave.
Don't go spreading that around, man.
Your intervention will happen.
I will see you
after this
next
clip.
week when I take over this position. I'm going to have to get a lot of tattoos and a lot of piercings, but I will live up to the challenge that's being
Yes.
put before me.
Can I pierce you?
Sure, man.
Yeah.
Right on. Did you just say what I thought you said?
No, that is a bad word, and I don't say that.
No.
Oh,
not at,
special
not at
thanks to our
nradio.com.
good friend, what the hell was his name?
Corey Dana,
Corey.
writer at
That guy.
Horrornews.net.
Dang.
Thanks for being on, Corey.
So let's watch some Raiders of the Lost Ark trailer as we pretend to shuffle papers like we're going through the evening news.
Oh, yes.
Oh, look at this.
I'm going to watch this movie I've
That
seen
is a
before,
valid-
but it was tossed at me.
That is a
Right,
valid
that's-
point.
that's a
Oh,
comic
look, a
book.
comic book.
Wow.
Oh, look, a book.
Then, yeah, we put the pen on the head, right? Yeah.
Oh, he's got a bell on his head. Look at that.
Do you realize what the Ark is? It's a transmitter. It's a radio for speaking to God.
Let her go.